Imagine a time, not so long ago, when a young city, born from the ashes of war and built on the promise of freedom, faced a threat unlike any other. A city forged by refugees, standing defiant against the bloodthirsty tides of empire and conquest. This isn't just a battle, it's the gripping saga of Abeokuta, a beacon of hope in the 19th century Yoruba land. Today, we journey back to 1851, a pivotal moment when the newly founded Abeokuta stood at a precipice. On one side, a nascent Egba nation, determined to carve out a destiny of liberty. On the other, the formidable Kingdom of Dahomey, a military juggernaut fueled by expansion and the fearsome reputation of its elite female warriors. To understand the magnitude of this storm, we must first appreciate the miracle of the rock. By the early 19th century, the old Oyo Empire was collapsing. Cities burned, populations scattered. From this crucible of conflict, the Egba clans found refuge beneath a massive outcropping of granite, Olumo Rock, a natural fortress that whispered a single promise: safety. Abeokuta, meaning refuge among the rocks, rapidly became a thriving metropolis. It was a city born of necessity, but sustained by ingenuity. Diverse clans, once scattered, were now united by shared trauma and a fierce independent spirit. They weren't just survivors. They were industrious farmers, skilled artisans, and cunning traders rebuilding a world from scratch. But Abeokuta was more than a haven. It was a burgeoning economic power. Its strategic location on the Ogun River opened vital trade routes. Palm oil and cotton flowed out. Wealth and influence flowed in. This prosperity made the city a target. Its very success was a challenge to the old powers, drawing both envy and fear. The city's strength also lay in its global mind. Freed slaves from Sierra Leone, the Soros, returned home, bringing with them new ideas and alliances. Alongside early missionaries, they began to reshape the city's destiny, blending traditional governance with modern progress. Abeokuta was becoming the sunrise within the tropics. But the ultimate challenge was moral. While others profited from the human trade, Abeokuta became a sanctuary. They offered refuge to those fleeing enslavement, turning their rock into a stronghold against trafficking. This stance earned them the support of the British, but it lit a fire of rage in the Kingdom of Dahomey. The lines were drawn. The hunters were coming for the hunted. Across the plains, in the formidable Kingdom of Dahomey, a storm was brewing. King Gezo, a ruler of iron will and boundless ambition, eyed Abeokuta's growing wealth and its defiant stance against the slave trade. To him, the Egba were not just a nuisance. They were a direct challenge to Dahomey's very economic existence and its military supremacy. Orders were given. The drums of war began to beat, summoning a force unlike any West Africa had ever seen. The legendary Amazons, the Mino, King Gezo's elite female warriors, were preparing for battle. Their reputation preceded them, striking fear into the hearts of all who dared to stand in Dahomey's path. But Abeokuta was not idle. News of Dahomey's intentions spread like wildfire. Under the leadership of their powerful Baloguns, the Egba mobilized. Trenches were dug, walls were reinforced, and every man, woman, and child played a part in preparing their rock fortress. The returning Saro, with their knowledge of European tactics and weaponry, offered crucial advice, transforming Abeokuta into a formidable defensive machine. They knew what was coming. They would meet the legendary Amazons not with fear, but with an unyielding spirit forged in the desire for freedom. The international community watched, hesitant. The British, though against the slave trade, were wary of open conflict. But Dahomey's message was clear and chilling. Surrender your runaway slaves, pay tribute, or face annihilation. The Dahomean envoy delivered the ultimatum with the cold precision of an executioner. For Abeokuta, the choice was no choice at all. They would not betray those who sought refuge. They would not bow to tyranny. And so, the stage was set. Across the vast plains, the formidable Dahomean army began its relentless march towards Abeokuta, a sea of warriors, their resolve as sharp as their blades. Within the walls of the city, the Egba stood ready, outnumbered perhaps, but never outmatched in spirit. Olumo Rock, their ancient guardian, watched over them. This wasn't just a battle for land or riches. It was a battle for the very soul of a people, for the right to define their own destiny. To uncover how this incredible clash unfolded and to join us in unearthing more untold African stories, make sure you hit that subscribe button on African Stories with Drey right now. Your support keeps this history alive.
March 3rd, 1851. The dawn did not bring light, but lead. The silence over Abeokuta was shattered as the Dahomean vanguard surged toward the Arrow Gate. This was no disorganized mob. It was a machine of war. The ground trembled under the rhythmic war cry of thousands, a sound meant to break the spirit before the first shot was even fired. Behind the mud ramparts, the Egba waited, their fingers on the triggers, watching the mist reveal the face of their nightmare.
Then came the Amazons. These were not just soldiers, they were the elite, the Mino. They reached the walls and did what was thought impossible. They climbed. With supernatural agility, they scaled the dried mud using bare hands and short swords. Legend tells of a single Amazon, her arm severed, who still pulled herself over the ledge to strike at the defenders. It was a war of wills. The Egba realized in that bloody moment, to survive, they would have to be more than warriors. They would have to be unbreakable. By noon, the heat of the sun matched the fury of the combat. King Gezo threw his final reserves into the fray, certain the city would crumble. But the hunted had a surprise for the hunters. A side gate creaked open, and out poured the elite Egba cavalry and infantry led by the fearless Balogun Kurunmi. They didn't just defend, they attacked. They cut through the Dahomean flank with a desperate rage, turning the tide of the entire war in a single bloody hour. The impenetrable Dahomean machine finally shattered. The retreat became a rout. Across the plains of Ishaga, the Egba pursued their would-be conquerors for miles. King Gezo fled into the sunset, leaving behind his royal symbols and the myth of his invincibility. Abeokuta had stood its ground. The refugees had defeated an empire. Stories like these are the heartbeat of our continent. If you feel the power of our ancestors' courage, don't let their names fade away. Hit that subscribe button on African Stories with Drey and help us keep the flame of our history burning bright. In the days that followed, the plains surrounding Abeokuta told a silent, gruesome story. The Egba returned to their gates carrying the trophies of an empire, captured banners, heavy iron razors, and the royal symbols of King Gezo himself. The victory was total. But as the smoke cleared, the people looked at the blood-stained earth and realized their survival was no accident. It was a miracle of their own making. The Battle of 1851 did more than save a city. It forged a nation. The scattered refugees who had once fled burning villages were now a unified people, baptized in the fire of their greatest trial. Beneath the shadow of Olumo, the differences between clans faded. They learned that the strength of the rock was not just in the granite above them, but in the unbreakable bond between the warriors, the mothers, and the elders standing beside them. Abeokuta became the sunrise within the tropics, a blueprint for African resistance. They had proven that the era of predatory slave-raiding empires was coming to an end. By standing firm against Dahomey, they protected the promise of freedom for thousands. The refuge among the rocks had become a fortress of hope, a place where traditional wisdom and modern innovation met to rewrite the map of West Africa. The walls may have aged, and the muskets may have fallen silent,
But the spirit of Abeokuta remains. It reminds us that unity is the ultimate shield, and courage is the ultimate weapon. Our history is not just a list of dates, it is a living flame. We are African Stories with Drey, and we are here to ensure that this flame never goes out. If these stories of our ancestors move your soul, hit that subscribe button and join our family. Tell us in the comments, whose story should we tell next? Your voice is the heartbeat of this channel. Stand proud, stand united. We will see you in the next story.